Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Grapplers Academy. Today we're talking about how to get more progress and quicker progress out of your training.
Definitely. Like today we discuss different styles of different ways of training. Ignore that little slip up. Different ways of training, like ways to leave your ego at the door. Like don't be that guy that's trying to beat everybody. Like sort of using your training partners differently.
It's a pretty open discussion today. It's not something too formal. There's quite a lot in there. Everything from talking about ego all the way down to like specific training tactics. So if you've not listened to any of the previous episodes on how to make the most out of your other training partners, the Top Gun style method of training that we implement, go back and listen to those. But we'll talk about them a little bit today as well.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, this can either be your starting point for it, or you can go back and listen to those first. But things might make sense if you listen to our previous episodes first before coming to this one.
Yeah, I've been asked loads of times, like by loads of people in the gym or people who come to you to train, how long is it going to take you to get to blue belt or purple belt or whatever? And the answer is always the same, isn't it? It's like, how much are you willing to commit to training, or how much can you actually afford to commit to training? Because the reality is, it's all about mat time. And you got that person who's coming in once or twice a week. It's probably going to take them a couple of years to get to that skill level where they're at blue belt, maybe. And then you've got on the other side of the coin that absolute psychopath who's training twice a day, 6 times a week. And we all know him, and I can tell you that that's not me. And it probably could be me if I could find that time and places to train like that. But somebody who's been training like that for 2 years is going to be a pretty savage player, depending on what club they're at.
Yeah, definitely. I think I agree with you. Like it's all just sort of that it's the annoying "it depends" answer, which nobody wants to hear. Because I think a lot of players sort of forget as well that not everybody's as dedicated to furthering their grappling as they might be. So, like someone who's got a full-time job, they've got a family at home, and they're doing grappling or jiu-jitsu as a break from the monotony and sort of just their own little escape and release, they're maybe not gonna progress as fast as, like you say, the psychopath mat rat. But then getting to their next belt promotion might not be a sort of burning goal of theirs. And they might not have aspiration to compete or anything. They might just want to get in, escape their reality for an hour or two, make some new mates and enjoy it. And then there's the other side of the coin, like you said, where they're in and all they think about is becoming world champion or becoming the next Leandro Lo or next Gordon Ryan. And my hat tips off to them. Like I said, I'm the same boat as you. I'd love to be able to find the time at the moment to commit that much to training. But I say it's difficult, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think there's like 3 sorts of person when you look at the sort of people who do jiu-jitsu. You could probably go into any club and find any one of these sorts of people on the mat. And there's that person who's just doing it as like, you wouldn't even maybe even call them a hobbyist, but that person who's doing it 1 or 2 times a week and, like you say, just doing it for fun. Like maybe they want to do it for a self-defense or whatever, something like that. Like they've got no aspirations for belts necessarily, although they might like them, but certainly no aspiration for competing and just doing it for fun. And then you've got that like enthusiast who's training every day of the week and like they're watching YouTube videos and all over Instagram instructionals and all that sort of stuff, which is great. And that person's there. That's probably the majority of people in the jiu-jitsu gym, to be honest, depending on how many days they're training. And then you've got the other person who's like pursuing that professional athlete status. They kind of want to be competing on the high level shows every weekend, and they're certainly training more than 1 time a day. But it's all about how much time can you commit. And the reality is, if you've got a job, probably you can't do that train like an athlete, even though you might have the desire to do so. And it kind of ties into everything else as well. Is it's like how can you recover in between those training sessions? Are you actually training any strength and conditioning in with that? Like where do your priorities sit? And for most people, it's probably somewhere in the middle. Like you're probably going to find yourself in that middle ground of being like a hobbyist to like an enthusiast.
Yeah. I say they tend to sort of be like a cross between the two, because like I know a few as well that are the sort of the enthusiast, but then they sort of drift into that sort of wanting to be world champion, and then they sort of pull back when life kind of gets in the way. So it's kind of like it's probably a bit of like a sliding scale, isn't there?
Yeah.
But no, they are pretty much the three that type of people that you tend to see in the gym.
The sad reality for that person in the middle kind of ground, though, isn't it? Is like the reality is they're probably never, even if they might drift in and out of that, wanting to be a world champion. The reality is, unless they're extraordinarily naturally talented, they're probably not putting in the level of commitment that's required to do it. Because if you look at all the world champions who are doing everything that everyone's hearing about on the competitive scene and whatever, basically they all quit their job, go and sleep on a mat in a gym somewhere in New York, and then just do every class that's available. I don't know how they afford to do it or what the arrangements are that they've got. But yeah, they just quit everything else that they're doing and then focus on that. And like, I remember watching a great documentary for Craig Jones on YouTube. It's just like he just threw all his chips in on that one and just went all out for it.
Yeah.
Gary Tonin is the same. Nicky Ryan is the same. I've heard them all talking about the same thing. And there's a name for it specifically, isn't there? But you only hear about those people that have gone through that gauntlet and survived and done well. I'm sure there are plenty of people that have done the same thing, but not actually been able to achieve that same level of status.
Yeah, like I think there's plenty out there that have been able to do that and achieve a level of success where they can support themselves. But I don't think there's as many that have been able to do that and achieve that level of status that they want.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really strange one, because like there can only be one best, and yet you've got probably thousands, I'd say, coming after that number one spot, and then amongst that there'll probably be a couple of hundred that are sort of capable of taking it, and then there's probably within those couple hundred, there's probably tens or dozens of people who are actually sort of the crop to achieve it.
Yeah, like you say, it's a funny sport because everybody competes against everybody else so often. Like you look at boxing, like fighters might go through the whole career and people are discussing, oh, he's the best, and like they might never even fight. Like in jiu-jitsu, the same guys are fighting each other multiple times a year, unless they're all ducking and diving at each other, which also happens, just talking crap at each other on Instagram. But like they're competing a lot because there's a lot of different shows, and arguably it is a sport where you can compete often. But like I said, and it's the same in any gym. There's probably a handful of guys who can take that top spot on the day, on any given day. One person's going to be on the top of the game and somebody else might not be quite there. And that kind of pecking order shifts around, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's a constant sort of revolution, that pecking order. I quite like watching it because like you'll see someone come in and win the big tournaments, and then say the finalists will have a rematch on a sub-only match, on a sub-only thing, and it'll be a completely different turn of events. And whether that's down to their individual performance in the day, whether they've learned and gone back to the drawing board to change, or whether it's just how they deal with the pressure, so how their mental game is.
Yep.
Like I say, like Slate said about the Craig Jones documentary, like I was speaking before we started recording this about that Daisy Fresh documentary on Flow, and it's very, very similar concept where there's literally like a team of guys. I think it's Pedigo, like grappling or something, Pedigo martial arts or something, and they live in the gym and they pretty much sold up and gone to live in this gym to train 9 hours a day, sleep in the gym with their teammates, and pretty much rough it and slum it until they hit that pinnacle of the sport. And there's got some talented guys there, but then there's also some very talented guys who, due to the nature of their own training schedule, won't be around for that long.
Yeah. It's like that jiu-jitsu meme, isn't it? The classic one where it's like a picture of an 85-year-old bloke, and it's like, I've been training, jiu-jitsu is amazing, I've been training for 2 years, and it's like quote from a 25-year-old. And it's a hard sport to train that much. Like we were talking about in the previous episode on the recovery, there's no off-season. Training's hard. So wrestling's the same as well. Boxing is smarter, definitely. There's these big gaps between fights. MMA is the same. Kickboxing, Thai boxing is probably a little bit more like jiu-jitsu, where you compete in, weekend out. And there's probably the same level of guys in that as well, from like hobbyists all the way up to psychopath enthusiasts. But it's a tough sport to train. And like those guys in that gym, and I'm sure you've met them as well. Have you ever had a chat with somebody you've gone to an open mat with, and they're really good, and you go like, "Oh, how long have you been training for?" And they're like, "Oh, 2 years." Like, how often are you training? And they're like, "Oh, 6 days a week and twice a day." Like, have you got a job? No.
Yeah. And that's like, to sort of achieve the level of skill that you probably need to get to the pinnacle. You can't work. You have to train 2-3 times a day, 6-7 days a week, and make those sacrifices.
Yep. You might be extremely fortunate and have a job where your working hours can facilitate that, and have the club available where that time schedule and timetable is available for you to do a class before work, and then come in and get your training and after work as well. I think probably here in the UK, that's a lot rarer than the opportunity to do that in America. Like New York and San Diego are probably the meccas for jiu-jitsu, arguably, aren't they?
Yeah.
And, you can guarantee that training opportunity is there for them, as well as if you're not working, you can pretty much train all the way throughout the day. Unfortunately, that's probably not a realistic option in the UK for most people.
Yeah, I think there will be quite a few exceptions to that rule. Like I say, you've got your Ross Nichols, and you've got your his name was right at the back of my mind then. But you've got like a lot of Ash Williams and other players out that have achieved like arguably best in Europe.
Yep.
And they've worked that hard where they've been able to build their club and their academy and have that team around them now where they can train at that.
Yeah.
And it shows in their skill set.
Yeah.
And then we've got like a lot of young players coming through now, like Freddie Vosgrove and River Dillon had his name was around for quite a while. Like Sean Coates, there's like a lot of players that are coming through that were fortunate enough to be able to sort of put that commitment to training. And like I love watching them, and really do love seeing the insight that they can put into the game as well.
Yeah, so like the level of an amount of time that they're spending on the mats in the gym, they can really deep dive into those concepts that they're trying to work on and make those improvements on the game, and like those micro improvements, and they're just seeing the changes day to day, hour to hour on the mat. They've got all those training partners who are training that level with them as well, and able to give them that feedback. And really, that's like kind of the ultimate thing that you'd want as a jiu-jitsu practitioner at any level, isn't it?
Yeah.
Having that network around you. And it's something that we've spoken about before, having that network around you, whether it's just a small group of 5 to 10 guys in your club who are kind of all on the same page in terms of wanting to improve. I mean, that's massive. You talked about that John Danaher article that was written a little bit ago, and it's just like it takes a village to to raise that one competitor, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And you've all got to be able to bounce those ideas off one another. And like if you can develop that sort of a network, amazing. You're going to have a great potential for developing.
Yeah, like you're only as good as the room you're in.
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't, like I think Gary Tonin said it recently as well. On an average sparring session, and say out of 3 5-minute rounds, you'll probably get tapped 15 times. And you shouldn't be winning every round. Like if you are, you're either not trying anything new, so you're not progressing, or you're in the wrong room and it might be time to find a new way to train, or if possible, find a new room to get into to either supplement your training or unfortunately move over.
Yeah.
Like
there's a couple of interesting points there, isn't it? Like we've talked about before, the how to make the most out of all of your training partners. So if you're stagnating like that, that's an option. If you're not listening to that one, go back and listen to that one. That was an interesting chat. But it also brings up another interesting point, which I think I know what my opinion is on it, but we can definitely talk about it now, like getting your priorities right. And we talked about that pecking order in the gym before.
Yeah.
But like you see a lot of guys whose priority is to be the number one guy in the gym.
Yeah.
And not actually using all your teammates to get better at beating other gyms and in competition. If your priority is just to be the number one person in the gym and just beat the guys in your gym, great. You might smash everyone in the gym and be biggest fish in a small pond. But when you go to competition, you've not been exposed or had the same opportunity to go against that higher standard because you've not developed your training partners to that standard, and then you're just getting beat at a competition, and then it's all well and good being the best guy in your room, but what does it matter realistically then?
It doesn't matter, yeah, like it doesn't matter at all if you're the best guy in the room, to be honest. Because I say you're not exposing yourself to new positions. If your side control escapes are shit, then get yourself in side control and practice escaping them. Doesn't matter whether they're 6 months in, 12 months in, or 10 years in. Put yourself in that position. If you want to work on your sweeps, get yourself in the position where you want to work on the sweeps. Again, it might be great that you can DAS everyone or Kimura everyone or armbar everyone in 30 seconds, but if you start on your back and you can't turn someone over, there's a hole that needs to be addressed. And like I said, like with the way that we train, like when we've trained together, is we'll put ourselves in those positions and we'll give each other feedback and we'll try to tighten those holes up, because we're both in the same understanding that as you get better, I get better, and as I get better, you get better. And if we're going to share the same mat, we want to elevate each other's game. It's not about getting the one up on each other. Obviously, like when we have the competitive rounds, we're going hell for leather on it.
I was going to say, sometimes it's about that.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Obviously, sometimes it's about that. But like the majority of the time, I'm not trying to beat my training partners up. I'm trying to elevate them so then they make me better. So then when I do get to compete, I've been exposed to every scenario that I can think of.
No, and it's the best way to be, isn't it? It's as you said, you're only as good as your next best training partner, or your worst training partner. And if they can't provide an adequate challenge to you to be able to elevate your game, then you're not going to progress. You're going to find yourself repeating the same sequences over and over again, unless you take the time and force yourself to break that habit. And sometimes people's ego is too big to take that step down. Like they might think it seems weak to get into a bad position or to be seen to be under somebody's side control.
Yeah.
How ridiculous is that? It's like, it looks weak for me to have been taken down, or whatever. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, I think that that mindset's more embarrassing than actually being in the position. Like, I get it. Like, there are times and there are sessions where winning is the priority, and sort of not giving your opponent an inch is the priority. But then there are sessions where you're like, okay, and like there's a hole in my butterfly sweep. I want to work on it. Like, you don't have to tell your partner that you're doing that, but you can work your way into, say, butterfly, try the sweep. Right, there's the hole. Make the adjustments, get it, try it again. Okay, it's slightly further this time. I just need to make that adjustment again. And it's just sort of that constant improvement. And then after the round, chuck your ego to the bin and be like, okay, so that sweep that I was trying, what was I doing wrong? Because we've adopted like what was it, the Top Gun style that we've spoke about quite a bit of.
Yeah,
That's a brilliant concept for improving your grappling game.
yeah. I'm not sure whether we've spoken about it on there in full depth, but I think we've spoken about it a little bit on there, haven't we?
Yeah, we've briefly touched on it. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a really interesting training methodology, and it involves having multiple training partners on the mat, like there for developmental purposes, rather than just smashing each other.
yeah,
And but it gets to that point where the it's like a pressure cooker, and that pressure comes up with the more intensity that you get familiarity with that position. It's so beneficial. I love it. It's such a good training methodology. And having those external eyes watching you for the purpose of watching you as well. It's like the reason why PT is so good, or you develop so quickly having one-to-one coaching. It's because all eyes are on you. And the purpose for everybody for that round is to improve the person on the mat's game. And guess what that does as well for the person watching? Because like, you can guarantee most people listening to this are going to be like, why do I want to watch a round when I could be rolling? It's like you're learning arguably more sat out watching than that you can then go and apply when it's your turn to be on the mat. I always think about it like going third person mode in a computer game. I say it all the time on it. I've probably repeated myself a million times, but the perspective that you get from going from first person, like where you're just in the thick of it and all you can see is your gun and you've got tunnel vision, to going third person, like you can see that person who's about to run up to you and stab you in the back. So just your perspective blows up when you take that third person view mentality and just take a step back and watch. And do it with the purpose of improving your training partners on the mat, but actually you're going to be taking a lot of valuable lessons from that yourself.
Definitely. I think as well, like the ability to give critical feedback gives you a much broader scope as well for improvement. Like, you're not just going to be, oh yeah, that was good, that was good. It's sort of like, okay, I see what they're trying to do there. And you break it down in your mind and you got to vocalize it to then give somebody beneficial feedback to what they're trying to do. Yeah. It's like, okay, so when you were trying this sweep, they kept basing with their leg. And that's because like your leg was over here. So maybe if you shifted your leg this way to either trap it or trip it, then you're going to get a higher success with the sweep. And then they can sort of retort back with, that makes sense. I have my leg here for this reason, but let's try it this way. And then it's the full feedback loop. You're getting much more from the rounds than just going in there going, oh, that sweep didn't work. What am I doing wrong? And then you don't change it, or you don't have the same speed of the feedback.
Yeah, I think on an even deeper level of that as well is even further than just like try this technique or that technique is like, and it kind of goes to the cliche that is always said as well, that you don't really truly understand something until you can teach it to somebody else. But being able to ask that question with the critical, analytical thinking of what were you thinking here? Like, not that was right or that was wrong. Like, you shouldn't have put your arm here, or you shouldn't have put your leg there, or what were you doing here? It's like, why did you do that? And then getting them to articulate that process. That's why it didn't work. It's because then, one, you can understand what they were thinking, what they saw or felt, when they were in the moment, and getting them to articulate through that themselves also opens up the opportunity for you to learn what they were thinking.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, like during them rounds, if you've got the third person there coaching through that whole process, it kind of builds their confidence up. But also, when they're watching teammates compete, they also know what to look out for. So then, for me as a coach, and I'm out there coaching like my guys, I've got one angle, but if I've got their teammates on the other side and they can see something that I can't see, they've got some critical feedback they can give back there straight away. Or even if there's more than one match going on and I can't make it to both mats, I know that I've got a network of people there that can help coach their teammates, which again, it benefits the growth of everybody in the club.
Yep. Like the ideal scenario would be to have everybody in your club a high coaching capability.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine what the level of improvement for everybody would be then?
Scary.
It'd be scary, wouldn't it? It'd be awesome to have everybody at that level that, like, even you might be the head of the club, but somebody can watch that round and be like, you doing this here? Or, and also being the guy in the top pecking order of things, like your students or the people who are lower than you in the pecking order shouldn't feel like they can't give you that feedback if it's justified and accurate. And you should also be humble enough to accept that if you've developed your training partners to that point.
No, definitely.
That was a killer.
And again, like, you're furthering your, because like it's kind of hard when you're leading the room, there's no one there to sort of critique or correct you. But then if you've got your students there who can give you critical feedback as well, your learning is not going to stop or slow down. So like you say, it's just going to create a boiling pot of talent and improvement within the club. And then it's also like, the way I look at that is, if you can coach something well, you can also innovate something really well. So then the level of creativity and innovation for transitions, submissions, just general grappling in itself will then sort of be put up another level. So then you're going to be coming out with new, sort of like we've talked about, sequences and katas. There's going to be a whole load of new form of sequences coming out. There's going to be a whole load of new ways of doing things or new thought process behind doing something.
Yeah, and the other thing is as well with that is, like, we talked about the importance of drilling your technique, and drilling technique doesn't just mean drilling the technique with a fully compliant body where they kind of just like, here's my arm and this and that. Like, drilling can be that more live drilling where it's intentional rounds and you're specifically trying to do that one thing, whether that be like guard passing and exploring all the possible options and concepts within that position. Yeah. But beyond that base level of technical proficiency, that's when that creativity can start to open up. And you look at all the best players in the world, and the defining factor between them, like we talked about previously again as well, is like the creativity and the ability to apply those techniques in unique circumstances, or even to see those unique circumstances. And you can't have that unless you've got that base level of technique. No, it's a prerequisite.
That's it. And I think that's sort of where a lot of people don't want to sort of think that way outside of the box. Like, I see a lot of players where it's sort of like, this is the technique, it works from here. No, here's the principle and the template, but it can also be applied to a multitude of situations. So I think, like I said, just having that sort of creativity and the boiling pot and the sort of critical feedback and just everything we've basically discussed over here is going to push yourself and your whole room up another level.
Yeah, massively. You've just got to be willing to take a step back sometimes to take 2 steps forward. And if you've got the opportunity to do that in your gym when everyone's about to train and try and implement something similar on your mats as well, if you're not doing it already. If it's something that the coach doesn't implement already in part of the sessions, try and find maybe some extra time at the end of class just to experiment around with that, or have a chat with them about it. Because you can probably guarantee actually that they're already doing something similar. You just might not be seeing the benefit because it's the way that it's kind of packaged or presented is slightly different.
Yeah.
Well, most clubs are probably doing something like that already.
Well, definitely. I think most coaches are open to suggestions or even just questions behind the reason behind things. And if they've not heard of it and they're unsure about it, show them this episode. Sure they'll sure they'll be interested in hearing about it, and they can even just drop us a message and we'll give them like we'll
definitely.
I'm talking about it.
I think it's just massively beneficial. If you are going to implement your own Top Gun style training at your gym, then you definitely need to come up with like code names. Clearly, I'm Maverick when it's going on. Don't know who wants to be Goose, but that's fine. If I amongst yourself, but come up with that at your own club.
Yeah. That's the thing, like, I've not seen the film that long that all the references are lost on me.
No,
so
actually, it's got nothing to do with Top Gun. It's actually got nothing to do with Top Gun the film whatsoever, and that might be completely misleading. I honestly can't remember which episode it was that we talked about it on, but maybe we need to do another more in-depth episode explaining it, because it's certainly not about Top Gun, regardless of how cool a movie that new one looks. The trailer for that new movie looks awesome. But yes,
if you get a flight suit, then obviously you're gonna level up a lot faster.
Flight suit rash guards. There you go. That's the way to go with it. Wrap up on that?
So if you like what you hear today, guys, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe button, and share with everybody you know that will be interested. We're here all about leveling you guys up. We want to just further everyone's development in the grappling game as much as we can. We've got some exciting stuff coming up. So yeah, make sure you share, like, and subscribe.
Yeah, everything on is for the development of everybody, the community as a whole. Like, the initial conception with all this was to get everybody's standard of training up. So if there's any topics that you want us to talk about, it's not just for us to generate new content. That's not why we're doing it. We're trying to improve the quality of everybody's game and ours as well at the same time. It's expanding our brains as well at the same time. So any topics that you want us to talk about, let us know, because genuinely it does help a lot of people training. We get really good feedback on it, and I'm excited to see any new ideas that anybody's got that's going to help this grow as well. Get in touch with us on the social medias. It's all at the Grapplers Academy. Drop a comment on the YouTube videos. We've got the audio versions of the podcast as well as the YouTube videos, and it's all at the Grapplers Academy. So the more feedback we can get, the better we can improve this. And as I said, we've got some exciting stuff lined up in the future with some exciting guests as well. If there's anybody else that you think it'd be worthwhile us talking about and getting guests on in the future, let us know as well about that, and we can see if they're open for it.
Definitely. But yeah, thank you for listening, guys, and make sure you tune in on Saturday morning for the next installment of our Turtle sort of series for this month.